from hotspotting.com.au, bringing you my regular weekly feature at this time, Hotspot of the Week. Today I'm going to focus on a particular part of the new summer 2019 edition of the Price Predictor Index, which we have just published. This is our quarterly predictor index that we do every 3 months based on a national survey, town by town, suburb by suburb, every location in the country to determine whether demand is rising or falling or moving sideways as a precursor to movements in prices, either up, down or stagnating. And one of the summary sections towards the front of the new edition of the Price Predictor Index talks about our national growth stars. These are our national top 10 areas. A lot of people ask me questions about particular individual suburbs. People seem to believe that it's all about identifying one suburb that's going to do better than everywhere else. And we at Hotspotting tend to think that that's something that really doesn't happen. Growth tends to happen in clusters, in areas and precincts. So we analyse markets in terms of local government areas by and large. We do it in lots of different ways, but generally speaking, we tend to think in terms of municipalities, precincts within capital cities and regional centres, or towns in regional Australia, where we're looking for evidence that there are numerous suburbs locations with rising demand, and we find that that's a precursor to price growth. So we've got a national top 10 in the summer 2019 edition of the Price Predictor Index, and I just want to quickly go through those 10 areas to alert you to the places where we're expecting to see good price performance. Some of these areas where prices are already doing pretty well, and others where we're just starting to see the first glimmers of price growth in response to rising demand, and we expect as 2019 unfolds, these areas are going to do better. I list them in alphabetical order. We have a top 10. We don't rank them from 1 to 10, although we do nominate one as our national growth star, and I'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. So firstly, Ballarat in Victoria, undoubtedly a growth market. It's been a leader of regional Victoria for the last, say, 12 months. It's really emerged strongly, thanks in part to demand by buyers out of Melbourne, buyers who have either been priced out of Melbourne or have realised that Melbourne prices, generally speaking, are no longer rising, and they're looking for areas that are going to show some growth, low entry prices, better rental yields. So both home buyers and investors out of Melbourne are leading the charge into Ballarat. So it's one of the growth markets in the country, and it certainly has a number of suburbs where demand is rising and prices have been reacting to that. Not far away from Ballarat, Bendigo. Similar things are happening, but a little bit behind Ballarat in the cycle, like Bendigo for that reason. We're starting to see increasing numbers of suburbs in Bendigo where demand is rising. We expect prices to follow suit. Brisbane South, Brisbane City Council area is very different to most of our capital cities. Most of our capital cities are divided up into lots of little councils, whereas Brisbane only has 5 councils covering the whole metropolitan area. Brisbane City Council covers a big chunk of it, so we've divided that into precincts. Brisbane South, so the southern suburbs of the Brisbane City Council area. We've found a number of suburbs in that area currently have rising demand, and we're starting to see prices react. It's very much Brisbane's middle market. That's probably, in some respects, the strongest part of the Brisbane market, which is underachieved up to this point, but we're expecting better things this year. And that's one precinct of Brisbane we think is going to do well, the southern suburbs of the Brisbane City Council area. The fourth on our list in alphabetical order, the Joondalup local government area in the northern suburbs of Perth. This is a very strong area. Joondalup is effectively a CBD for the northern suburbs of Perth. A fantastic CBD with lots of amenities and infrastructure and facilities, including a transport interchange, surrounded by suburbs where prices are fairly affordable and demand is growing. Perhaps a surprise inclusion, the next one, the Latrobe area of Victoria, the Latrobe Valley, an area that was expected to go backwards following the closure of some coal-fired power stations and related industries. But in actual fact, thanks partly, at least, to government investment to try and mitigate, offset the impact of those business closures, have invested quite strongly in that area. And we're starting to see the economy picking up, unemployment falling. A number of towns out there very affordable, like Traralgon, Morwell and Moe. Some of those towns have median house prices below 200,000 and very good rental yields. And so they're attracting buyers, both investors and home buyers, for affordability reasons. But of course, there's plenty of cheap places in Australia where they're probably not going to get any capital growth because there aren't any major growth drivers there, but this area does have it. And we're seeing demand picking up strongly, and we're starting to see the beginnings of price growth in that Latrobe area, out in the Gippsland precinct east of Melbourne. The next one on our list is the Marion, local government area, the City of Marion, Middle Market, Adelaide. A very strong area, one that we've highlighted in a number of our reports over the past 12 or 18 months. A number of suburbs there have strongly rising demand, great infrastructure in this area, university campus, big medical precinct, the Tonsley Innovation Precinct, great transport infrastructure, ticks a lot of boxes, very affordable, particularly compared to the bigger cities. Most suburbs have median prices in the 400,000s in this particular area, and we're expecting some pretty solid price growth. In Adelaide generally, because we think Adelaide is very much underrated, the economy there is much stronger than people realise, and we keep highlighting it, and hopefully eventually people will pick up on it and take action. But certainly a market on the rise, headed by Marion and one or two others. The next on our list of top 10 local government areas in Australia in terms of rising demand, likely to lead to price growth, is the regional city of Mackay in Queensland. Now, this is a regional centre that's leading the recovery in those areas of Queensland that were previously in downturn because of their links to the resources sector. That sector is reviving quite strongly in Queensland, and Mackay, which isn't just about the resources sector, it has strong links to agriculture, to tourism and other sectors, but certainly it is strongly interconnected with the resources sector, the mining sector in central Queensland. And as a result of improvement there, vacancy has dropped a lot in Mackay, sales activities picked up, and we're now starting to see prices rise quite steadily in a number of the suburbs of Mackay. The next area we've identified is the Moreton Bay region. That local government area is the northern outskirts of the Brisbane metropolitan area, very affordable area. Lots of sales activity up there. It's targeted by investors and first home buyers and others because it's affordable. Plenty of suburbs with median prices in the 300,000s and the 400,000s. Some parts of it are water frontage suburbs. Good infrastructure. There's new rail links to the Redcliffe Peninsula. There's a new university campus under construction, and demand is rising, and we expect prices to follow suit as this year unfolds. Number 9 on our list, again emphasising that it's in alphabetical order, is the Port Adelaide Enfield local government area in Adelaide. And this, in fact, is the number 1 local government area in Australia in terms of the number of suburbs where demand is rising, according to our suburb by suburb research that we do every quarter, looking at sales volumes, which translates basically into demand. So there are 12 suburbs in this local government area where we've identified sales activity rising pretty steadily, and some of those areas are already producing good price growth. And the generalised data that talks about how much Adelaide prices are rising, say just 2 or 3 or 4%, depending on which research source you believe. But that's a generalised data across the city of Adelaide. As with any city, there are areas that are outperforming well above those numbers, and Port Adelaide Enfield, that local government area up in the north, is one of those. And it's going to be, I think, one that's going to go forward very strongly, partly because that's where you may have seen an announcement by the federal government, a further announcement earlier this week about contracts to do with the building of vessels for the Navy. That's where it's all taking place, up in the Port Adelaide area. Lots of jobs being generated by that, and that's going to be a factor moving forward over the next 10, 15 or more years. We also have state government jobs being moved up to that precinct as well. Maybe hearing a bit of extraneous noise in the background. We do have a thunderstorm in the area, and it's causing all sorts of disruptions. Hopefully we can get to the end of this without too much disruption. Number 10 on the list of leading areas of Australia is the Queanbeyan precinct in New South Wales, but effectively part of the Canberra metropolitan area. Queanbeyan is, as we like to say, has got the best of both worlds. It benefits by being part of New South Wales because first home buyers can access the incentives, grants and stamp duty concessions that are available in New South Wales, but can be still effectively part of the Canberra metropolitan area. Many of the suburbs of Queanbeyan are actually closer to the centre of Canberra than many of the suburbs of the ACT. It's just the way the line on the map is drawn. So this is very much a rising market, benefiting by being part of Canberra, but also being in New South Wales. So those are the 10 areas that we highlight in the summer edition of the Price Predictor Index as places where we're expecting prices to do well this year and beyond, because we've seen the pattern of rising demand. That's generally a precursor to price growth, and that's why we do this exercise every 3 months. And we've nominated one of these areas as our national growth star, and this time it's the city of Bendigo. Even though Port Adelaide Enfield has the most suburbs, but we've highlighted it in previous editions of this report, and so we want to identify a new growth area, and Bendigo is very much one that's emerging now. Ballarat's ahead of Bendigo in the cycle. Bendigo is really just in the last 6 to 12 months started to emerge as an area with rising demand, and we expect to see prices responding to that, particularly as there's really strong demand coming out of Melbourne from buyers and investors who don't want to pay Melbourne prices anymore, looking for much more affordable areas, keeping in mind that most Bendigo suburbs have median house prices in the 300,000s and some are actually in the 200,000s. Typical rental yields around 5%. Lots of buyers, as I said, out of the state capital and elsewhere. Certainly an area that I'm personally interested in investing in. So that's in the new summer edition of the Price Predictor Index. Bendigo is our national growth star for all the 4 stated regions. So that's Hotspot of the Week for this week. The top 10 areas across the country, the top 10 local government areas, municipalities, where we're seeing a pattern of rising demand, likely to lead to good price growth as this year unfolds and into next year as well. That's it for now. Let's do it again next week. Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au signing off. Talk to you again soon.